Oh, dah stream, dah live stream lah. Dah aku dah keluar dalam ni. Oh, dah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good afternoon to all for today's session, which is we have a special session today, which is honoring the contribution and the intellectual giants of Muslim ummah, which is Prof. Dr. Abdul Hamid Abusulayman, which is one of the founders of IIIT, and also the second rector of IIUM, International Islamic University Malaysia. We done the session today is to honoring him because this is the anniversary of his passing away after he passed away in 2021, just recently, and even after his passing away, we even in IIIT in Malaysia we have our own session. We give opportunity to all of his students to talk about his thinking and his contribution, and also even in the IUM we also collaborated with IUM to publish the book which is the contribution on his, especially on his contribution on Islamic thought in Islamic world and also in IUM specifically. Today, alhamdulillah, we have one of the speaker today is Brother Hilman, which is the executive assistant to the chairman emeritus, and I think we all here also have we can say have memories of interacting with him. This is compared to before this we have talked about Ismail Faruqi and Taha Jabir Alwani, and frankly we never met them. But Abdul Hamid Samad had come to Malaysia many times, and even though he's already retired when we becoming a student or we are more aware of this world, even then I myself personally have met him maybe 2 or 3 times and listening to his talk directly instead of just reading his book. And we know that he's very humble, even and he's very, his style is even when I read his book or I read what other people write about him, we understand what is kind of his the way that his approach education, his approach of the leadership. We see it ourselves instead of just reading it. I think this is I think Abdul Hamid Saman is very much close to us, and we honoring him, and we hope that we can party in Malaysia, especially in Southeast Asia, personally, can continue his thinking. Without further ado, I think I'm just giving the session just directly to Brother Hilman so that he can share more about the contribution of Prof. Abdul Hamid Samad for those.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastahdi wa nastaghfiruh wa natubu ilayh. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Thank you very much, Brother Shazwan, and everyone's participating physically in this auspicious meeting room. And as mentioned by Brother Shazwan, Almarhum Dr. Abdul Hamid is very dear and very close to us. He just passed away 3 years ago on 18th of August. So in another 2 days, we'll be marking the 3 years passing away of Professor Abdul Hamid. And of course, we mostly know him because he was the second rector of this university. But not much is discussed about his life before that. when he was teaching in Riyadh and Saudi Arabia, and of course his deep experience in activism and student leadership, leading few huge organizations such as WAMI, World Assembly of Muslim Youth, and be as one of the co-founders of the International Institute of Islamic Thought in Herndon, Virginia, in the United States, alongside with other co-founders such as Marhum Ismail Farouqi, Marhum Jamal Barzinji, Marhum Sheikh Taha Jabir Al-Alvani, and last but not least, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, also alongside another two scholars, which is Dr. Ahmed Tutunji and Dr. Hisham Apal. Now, he was trained as a political scientist. We know that his PhD thesis is towards an Islamic theory of international relations, yeah, which was no longer published, but very interesting because he discussed about international relations in the time where that discipline is a very fresh and new discipline. Of course, what contributed is the First World War and the Second World War, and the Cold War subsequently, and the dismantling of the Soviet Union and the emergence of the United States as a new superpower in the international arena, which gives us a new reflection about how to deal with different nation states and to craft our own foreign policy. And Abdul Hamid, completing his PhD thesis in University of Pennsylvania in 1973, and then published the work with IIIT, has somehow elucidated an Islamic perspective of this. Of course, his impetus, the primary drive, was driven from his work written on economics, Nazariyatul Islamiyah Al-Iqtisadiyah, which is the Islamic theory of economics, not the theory of Islamic economics, but the Islamic theory of economics. And from that, he sees that we need to craft our own principles and policies in international relations. Now, I'm going to start with something a bit of a personal dimension of Sheikh Abdul Hamid. We all know that he was a workaholic. We know that in a letter, in an emotional letter written by Anwar Ibrahim to Abdul Hamid after he was imprisoned in 1998, and after Abdul Hamid left, forced to leave the university, in that emotional letter, which we can share in the group. Yeah, it's available online. Republished, I think, in 2022 by Maidan.com. In the letter, if we can recall how Brother Anwar spoke to Faikah, the wife of Abdul Hamid, and Faikah sometimes mumbling about Abdul Hamid's new wife, and said Abdul Hamid has a second wife. He's now married to the university because of his utter uncompromised commitment to the university, and probably the man that has the same commitment, we can say, is also Almarhum Professor Kamal Hassan, which usually sleep in his office here in the university, spending most of the times pondering and thinking, devising policies to ensure the success of Islamization of knowledge and the production of Islamized students and staff to contribute to society. And you can read a very interesting letter and also a very good insight already shared in the group. The letter, which we can gain a lot of things. And we also know that he is the architect of the International Islamic University, not only metaphorically devising the curriculum, but also literally an architect. He was responsible to place the mosque in the middle of this whole architecture. And circling the mosque is the classes and the offices. And then at the third layer is the mahallah, the hostels for the students. Alongside with notably Haji Hamzah and Professor Ismawi Zain and also Rasim Badran from Jordan and Abdul Halim from Egypt. So just to put this into record. So, and then he became rector for about 10 years from 1988 after being called by Brother Anwar, invitation from the Ministry of Education to come to this newly established university as rector. And you can read in the letter, without offering anything. You see that commitment. He's now enjoying teaching at Saudi Arabia with a handsome salary every month. But then coming here without any guarantee or without any confirmation of how much he will be paid. But eventually he just requests for a few things. I think Dato Jamil mentioned in this book, a driver, as office, and a good car. Because because he's tall. He's from Saudi Arabia, so he's taller than an average person here in Malaysia. So he requires a good car with a long, good. In the flight is a leg room, so good. And of course, we know after his demise, based on the revelation, that he didn't take his salary. He donated, if not all, most of it to these funds, which now named as Abdulhamid Abusulayman Funds for Scholarship for International Students. This is the funds that will fund international students. Their tuition fees, we waive, and then they'll come here. Also to ISTAC. Such a noble thing, and also to put on record, the Yaqub Mirza also donated to these funds the past few years, which now amounted to, I think last time I was informed, almost 3 million ringgit already, if not 4 million. And it's will be beneficial to the international students, especially. And then, of course, we know 1908, he was forced to leave the university and replaced by none other, the crucial person at that time, Professor Kamal Hassan, who managed to steer the university in the midst of uncertainty and a lot of political instability. And we also know that he's very concerned with Malay culture, and probably the culture of, well, when I say Malay, including people from Southern Thai, also Cambodia, Indonesia partly, and Brunei. Singaporean has somewhat a different culture a bit due to rapid modernization and nationalization. But the Malays in general, his concern is that they are too shy. And so what did he do? He, especially the female students, he said. And so they are evasive of verbal communications. I think partly because of shyness, also partly because of language barrier, I think, right? And therefore, one of the things he do is to encourage debate. And he's responsible in introducing this debating club in IIUM, which produce notable figures such as who, some of them, and we can mention a few other names, produce good people who can debate. And another thing that he did is to invite this Professor Aminah Wadud into IIUM. She's now in the United States. Of course, here we know she sparked controversies, especially due to her ijtihad. But nonetheless, she bring in Aminah Wadud to give encouragement and convince the female students especially that you can be outspoken and you can be confident of yourself to express your views. And then, yes, and of course, we know that he passed away 2021, and on 22nd of August, IIUM decided to rename the Kuliah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge as Abdulhamid Abusulayman Kuliah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, as a manner of respecting and appreciating his contribution, immense contributions to this Kuliah and also to the university. It was common to say that Abdul Hamid's mind and soul belong to Malaysia for his tremendous contributions in developing the IIU, especially, and particularly its subsequent campus in Gombak. But more importantly, he belongs to the Muslim ummah worldwide. Now, we just finished that personal dimension of Abdul Hamid. Let us go a bit before we open to discussion to his ideas and thoughts in his works, particularly those that are available to us. We know usually scholars have drafts, letters that are unpublished and unknown to us, but those that we have access, we can evaluate and discuss the main thesis of his works. He has penned a few books. Probably among the earliest is the Islamic Theory of Economics in 1960, published in Arabic. And then he produced the summary of the book into 2 articles published by IIUM Journal of Economics and Management. All right. And then, of course, towards an Islamic theory of international relations. Then in 1986 is the crisis in the Muslim mind, Azmatul Fikr. And then in 1986 as well, he co-authored the Islamization of Knowledge, which was published under the name of IIIT. There was no specific author, but he co-authored alongside with Ismail Faruqi.
The general principle.
Yes. And then 2003 is Marital Discord, Recapturing the Full Islamic Spirit of Human Dignity. And then Contemporary Islamic Reform.
So at that time he's already writing about marriage.
Yes, very, very, very early he has this thought. And then Contemporary Islamic Reform, Discourse Renewal in 2006, and Revitalizing Higher Education in the Muslim World in 2007, and then Parent-Child Relationship, A Guide to Raising Children, 2013. This will be discussed by Sister Balkis shortly. And then, okay, right. Let's discuss about one of his works, which was written in Arabic, and I think it was not translated yet into English. Pardon me if I'm wrong, but I can't see, I can't find it in the internet, the translation, which is Azmatul Iradah wal Wijdan al Muslim, or roughly translated as the crisis in the Muslim will and emotions. After World War II, especially after the liberation of the Muslim states worldwide, following the Atlantic Charter and following the Cold War and a lot of treaties that saw many Muslim nations liberated from their colonial masters. We saw that there is a vacuum in good leadership and also in terms of developing the societies. A lot of scholars have written to diagnose this problem during colonial period and after it, what we call as post-colonial. Among them is Amir Shakib Arsalan, who has written an important work titled Limaza Ta'akhara al-Muslimun wa limadha taqaddama ghayrihim, or why Muslims are in backwardness and why other than Muslims excel and develop. Mengapa kaum Muslim mundur dan mengapa kaum selain mereka maju. This book is actually an answer to a letter by an Indonesian scholar who asked for the state of affairs of the Muslims during colonial period and after it, which, according to him, why Islam doesn't give us modernity and development. The West doesn't have the right religion, but they can propel themselves into a new civilization and new strength and economy that they dominate upon us. So one of the things that he diagnosed is the lack of will or tiadanya tekad, political will or the individual will to do reform and to develop. And this lack of will be instrumental in the underdevelopment of education, economics, and even political stability. And Abdul Hamid also, in this regard, evaluate, and he even admonished the Umayyad Caliphate, the Khilafah Umayyah, for initiating the system of tyranny, istibdad, the monarchy system, and extinguishing the light of Islamic polity. This action reignite the Bedouin mentality of the desert worldview, which in Arabic is called Ru'yah A'rabiyah, the desert worldview, the worldview of the Bedouins. A tribal ideology marked by narrow-mindedness, racism, and autocratic leanings. So why such worldview is reprimanded? Because according to Abdul Hamid, the Quranic worldview, Ru'yah Quraniyah, is something that is meta-tribal. It transcends tribalism and narrow nationalism, which now engulfing Europe, especially in the United Kingdoms, with the rise of this far extreme right, fueling racism to discrediting the Muslims and the blacks. While in Islam, we know the Prophet showed the example by initiating this Medina Charter, Sahifah Medina, and introduction of a good family brotherhood through nursing from the same woman, treaties of protection and safe conduct and citizenship of every nations under the name ummah, including the Jews and the Christians. This we don't discuss. If we are being truthful to our notion of Islamic ummah, we should also be truthful in revisiting this history in the Madinah nation state, where the Prophet include the Jews and the Christians as part of the ummah. Why does our nationalists or Islamists doesn't really discuss about this and somehow downplay this and only focusing?
Talk about kafir harbi and kafir zimmi.
That's right. When you know that is an ijtihad during the war times, during the state of war, where by default, the foreign policy of the Muslim state is Darul Islam, Darul Harb. During wartime, it's normal. You have to ally yourselves. If you are not with us, you are against us. But now, after the liberation, after the independence, this is the month of independence, it is a different setup altogether. Now, and then he also mentioned about Ibn Khaldun's theory of change and reform. Of course, affirm the racial characteristics of Al-Umran Al-Badawi, the Asabiyah, because it gives the nomads the strength and courage needed to conquer dynasties, to take control of cities and even found new dynasties. However, Ibn Khaldun does not condone chauvinistic leanings or ultra-nationalism, right, that despise other races as inferior to them. So this Khaldunian politics, Asabiyah, ideally should serve only as a powerful tool of solidarity and unity to change political leadership, a tribal religious revolt to bring about a return to the correct path. A good analysis of this theory applied to Muslim history is you can read Said Farid Alatas, applying Ibn Khaldun, The Recovery of a Lost Tradition in Sociology. Good book, I think published by Routledge. He analyzed and applied Ibn Khaldun's theory to the Murabitun, Muwahhidun Caliphate in Northern Africa, and also the Umayyad Caliphate. Now, okay, let's go into the crisis in the Muslim mind. So in this work, Abdul Hamid offers a self-criticism to reflect on ourselves. Why are we in the state of malaise, despised by other nations, partly contributed by Orientalism during colonial period. But afterwards, we cannot blame anymore Orientalism, but we need to look into ourselves. So what is his diagnosis? Instead of blaming or putting the blame squarely on the Western colonial, Abdul Hamid recounts how Muslims felt content to be spectators and consumers in the modern world and not a serious participant in developing global civilization. And then he elucidated what he termed as intellectual deficit of the ummah. As much as he is against taqlid or blind following, he also warned against talfiq or the urge to graft essentially Western solutions onto its own political, military, cultural, and economic problems. Both taqlid and talfiq must give way to an original and integral Islamic approach that rejects imitation. I guess these are generally what the diagnoses are being offered by modern post-colonial Muslim thinkers. How we imitate the West entirely. In Egypt, for example, after being colonized by the French, the Pasha, the minister, somehow fascinated by the French culture and architecture, that he commanded Egyptians to build bridges and buildings akin to that in France, until Hamka in his Jamaluddin Al-Afghani mentioned sepotong Paris di bumi Kahirah. Yeah, because we imitate everything from architecture, which has its own philosophy behind it, to political system and education, which will banish the nation, the locals, to inferiority complex. So what is urged is intellectual reconstruction of various academic disciplines based on the worldview of Islam. This was done through the Islamization of knowledge via de-Westernization, de-secularization, and decolonization of knowledge. These are important keywords, I think Nasrul would want to add more further. And to bring about this seismic change, the Islamic University has become the primary intellectual instrument to achieve this objective. So you can say, because people keep asking, Shazwan, after 40 years, what is the result of Islamization? While it is warranted that we should ask for that product, we should also keep in mind that this is a process. So long this process keep improving, then we should be content and, trust the process, provided we are led by a good rector. Who is the rector? Allahu Akbar. Okay, and then another work is the Quranic worldview. Now, this work, I think, is also available in IIIT office. The Quranic worldview, a springboard for cultural reform. Now, in this work, he elucidates the basis for mental transformation of the Muslim mind. According to Abdul Hamid, the near complete loss of the Islamic worldview enabled those in position of power to don robes of bogus sanctity while adopting the role of despotic caretaker in relation to the Muslim community. Islamic discourse thus appeared to have become devoted to the aim of negating both the self and the mind by encouraging servile acquiescence to the authority of bigoted tyrants. In so doing, it demonstrated wanton disregard for the Muslim community's bona fide right to oversee its rulers, whose duty is to protect their subjects' interests and lend their approval to the decisions that grow out of joint consultations between ruler and ruled. Probably here we are more acquainted with the cycle of ignorance as elucidated by Syed Najib Al-Atas in his work, The Concept of Education in Islam. Also in Risalah untuk kaum Muslimin, where he discussed about how confusion of knowledge will give rise to false leaders. This is pretty much the same. When false leaders will manipulate you using the system that they initiated to remain in power and to keep you underdeveloped, hampering any reform agenda, and to keep mediocrity at its best. Remember, in Islam, the concept of wasatiyah does not condone mediocrity. Mediocrity is biasa-biasa. Ala kadar, yeah, that's the word. Ala kadar atau buat sekadar cukup. We want the best. Mediocrity, wasatiyah is not about mediocrity, but wasatiyah is, as what the Prophet said, Inna Allah yuhib idha amila ahadukum ayutqinahu. The God loves his servant who, whenever he do something, or whenever she does something, he or she does it with earnestly. Do it the best. Right? Okay. So now you see, we start with his work that discuss about the philosophy, the crisis in the Muslim mind, and then the Quranic worldview. He also has written another, not a familiar work, but he discussed about comparative religions, where he mentioned about the relationship between Muslims and Christians and the Jews. It is an article titled The Doctrine of Crucifixion, Doctrine Penyaliban Isa, Jesus Crucifixion. Between Islam and Christianity, a dialogue and comparative study. So in this work, the objective is to resort to the idea that Islam does not condone enmity with Christianity. Yes, Islam criticizes and refutes the doctrine of crucifixion, but not in a manner of aggression or trying to pick up a fight, but rather to protect the sanctity and the noble status of Jesus, as well as his mother Mary, the status that they deserve. And Islam also attributes the miracles to Jesus the same way Christians attribute it to them. For example, the ability to raise people from the dead and to cure leprosy, is it? Sopak, I think. Skin disease, I think leprosy. Kusta, yeah. And also the ability to speak during infancy and the ability to cure people and other sorts of miracles. Also in this work, Abdul Hamid tries to show how Islam venerate and also put respect in respectful peoples that are also respected by the Christians, such as the followers of Jesus, the Hawariyun, the 12 apostles. Now, and then he also wrote about parent-child relationship. Now, this is the next step. After we clarify about the ideas, the Islamic worldview, we now discuss about the education of the children. This book he co-authored with Hisham Al-Talib and also Omar Al-Talib. Omar Al-Talib is a sociologist. This is the book. This is a Malay translation. Who translates this? Balkis? Okay. Abim. Okay, so Abim translates this. And a few, I think Balkis knows better. 4 or 5 people translates this. Yeah, so hopefully Chupaiti paid them well. So this translation is important. Okay. This work is important as much as the manual guide for workers. Manual guide for workers. Yeah, as much as that book is important, this book is also important. Why do we say this? Because every scholar or educators who look into the contents of this book, they say the same. Wow. There is a second edition of this book. And because we don't discuss this anymore. No, I mean, in today's world, we don't discuss about parent-child relationship anymore. We just go with the flow, influenced by the media and the Western education, without go into our own tradition. And also, I want to oh yes, training guide for Islamic workers. Also, yeah, this is Dr. Hisham. We pray for his health. Inshallah, is recovering. I was informed yesterday by Dr. Omar. He's transferred into care unit something, but is recovering better. Oh yeah, those are the two books that we just mentioned. The Quranic Worldview, and this is published by IIIT as well. Yeah, it's a Fish Sharif in honor of Abdul Hamid. Yes. Also probably Sister Balkis would add some, because she's responsible in producing modules to train, and becomes an important module that has a she earned royalty from that module as well. Okay, now I would like to touch upon one issue in parent-child relationship, which is the sex education. Okay, Nasro would love this. Okay, because this is an important subject, right? Now we know that sex education is not about, it's about, in the West, we're mentioning in the West, it's about teaching the children how to prevent venereal disease and also to prevent unwanted teenage pregnancy. Oh yeah, tadi apa? Oh, Quranic Worldview, yeah. Oh, hardcover. Right? So two objectives mostly, which is to prevent venereal disease and also to prevent unwanted teenage pregnancy and also subsequent abortion. Now, the authors of this book, of course, looking into the tradition of Islam, we say that this severely lacking important components in sex education, which is, number one, they don't discuss about morality. Number two, they don't discuss about sexual dysfunction. Number three, they don't discuss about deviation from societal norms. And number four, they don't discuss about marriage. Of course, in this, I mean, you can look into the book, he discussed a lot of issues. Say, for example, Thailand records the highest AIDS disease. I think top is the first country with the highest AIDS disease, just neighboring us. It's not United States or others. This shows there is a lack of sex education. And also, we don't discuss about marriage. I think in Sabah, with all due respect, but this lacking of education has caused Sabah to become one of the states with highest teenage pregnancy in Malaysia, right? And of course, I think the latest statistics by DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia, shows that Malaysia is experiencing a decline in population. Means that we are producing less and less child. Okay, so because if we give exposure about marriage and how marriage is a union not between two different gender and sexes, but between two different families of probably two different backgrounds. Right? Nehran is from Sabah, Bajau. The husband is from Perak. Two different cultures. Right? So Nehran eats burasa. One doesn't eat burasa. But of course, oh, okay. No, in Sampurna they have this burasa as well. Burasa. Burasa. Okay. And from parent-child relationship, he then discussed about higher education. Of course, this is very close to his heart and mind because he becomes a rector of this university with the idea of reform. He discussed this in revitalizing higher education. And we have BIB for this, books in brief. So one of the main strategies in higher education is to integrate humanities with religious knowledge in order to address the ostensibly existing rift between the secular and the religious. IRKHS was his brainchild. Of course, a few other scholars contributing to it. The likes of Professor Kamal Hassan, and even to some extent, Dr. Matno Manuti, who was its dean of IRKHS. Yeah. Also, Daud Bakar, the deputy dean or deputy rector? Deputy rector of IUM. Yeah. But before that, he was the deputy rector. With a wide scope of knowledge, complementary in orientation and tools, a superior comprehension of spiritual, ethical, and social dimensions, and methodological complementarity. It is not an easy task, of course, and even today, this idea receives opposition from among the academic staff, who probably was not exposed or understand the nature and philosophy of Islamization of knowledge. Regardless of the term now, probably now we use integration of knowledge. Yeah. Because we have this issue of secular is pitted against the religious. As a result, we produce engineers, architects, doctors, lawyers, which influenced by a secular worldview. And we have asatizah, ulama, alim, ustaz, mufti, with religious background, but detached from the society. Therefore, they produce fatwa which somehow does not harmonize with the society. While we know that one of the principles in usul al-fiqh is al-adatul muhakkama, the custom, the local custom is acknowledged and must be considered. This is in the fifth principles in usul al-fiqh, right? And so this is a huge agenda. And of course, you go anywhere, IIU, due to this philosophy and endeavor, Islamization of knowledge, and its noble pursuit to produce ummah, to reform its states of affairs, it gains recognition to everywhere you go, especially in Muslim nations. You go to Egypt, they acknowledge the contributions of IIU. You go to Syria, you go to African countries, you go to Germany, you go to Korea, you go to China, Taiwan, they know this, and it somehow becomes something of a pride of the ummah. And as a matter of fact, there are a few countries that try to follow this. We have IIU in Nigeria. We have IIU Chittagong in Bangladesh. You have IIU in Islamabad. And now, very recent is you have IIU in Indonesia, but this IIU is somehow different from the rest of IIU because it does not have any, or probably to some extent, a heavy communication and influence from IIU here and also IIIT and its co-founders and its scholars. Okay, so child education and then higher education, and he also talks about economics, and probably I'll end here and we open to discussion. We talk about this theme is Pemikirannya Terus, Membara. And at the end of the letter by Brother Anwar to Abdul Hamid, he quoted Roger Garaudy, where he mentioned, it is not to burn the ashes of the dead, but to rekindle their flames. So why we speak about Abdul Hamid today is because his ideas, a lot have been not yet materialized. We who understand it need to work to materialize it. And one of the things that he discussed in Islamic economics is how some of our Islamist economists thinking that if they could avoid dealing with interest and introduce another modern economic instruments and methodologies to provide the same economic benefit and motivation, then they could solve the problem. In this way, the contemporary capitalistic system and society could be labeled as Islamic. These economists seem to misunderstand that interest is a tool and a result of the capitalistic system, not a cause. Is the symptom of disease, not the cause of your disease. All Muslim efforts to deal with interests or other partial issues will not solve the Islamization dilemma of contemporary Muslim societies. Therefore, we have the need to rediscover the Islamic philosophy pertaining to economic life, a philosophy which is consistent, explains all issues together, and share the common concept and factors behind all of them. We already have dozens of Islamic economics conference. The latest one being hosted by Bank Negara Malaysia in May, I think. And then IIIT under the leadership of Professor Aslam as well, hosted ICIF, International Conference in Islamic Economics and Finance, the 15th in Sasana Kijang. We discuss about this, but still we do not get the gist of what Abdul Hamid mentioned, was also in echo of what the Prime Minister mentioned. The Prime Minister said, our Islamic banking is now only focused on riba, the interest, how to avoid riba. Even to the extent of, in the equation, you replace riba with another thing, but produce same benefit and motivation, that is halal. Right? So the PM mentioned this, Abdul Hamid also mentioned this. Probably they discussed. But the PM mentioned, and also mentioned in this book by Sanu Kutub. We should focus on the maqasid of Islam economics. What is the objectives? What are the purposes of economics? It is to alleviate poverty. It is to bring welfare to the people. Development without dehumanizing. What the PM always said, jangan sambil membangun kita meroboh. He quoting Muhammad Nasir, the Prime Minister of Indonesia. So, for example, just to quote one example, just to show the substance of this work, Abdul Hamid mentioned. So, for example, if you want to borrow loan, if you want to borrow money, and with time you have to pay more, that is considered as riba. But if that money is substituted by a commodity, for example, house, you want to purchase a house without purchasing loan, so the bank buy the house for you, and so you pay to the bank the amount of the house, right? And this is considered as halal because they are quoting the Quranic verses. Wa ahallallahu al-bay' wa harrama ar-riba. Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala allows business but forbids interest. But then he said, money or fulus is having more purpose than a commodity. But because money will be equivalent to riba if you pay more when, say for example, more time than the increase in payment, therefore it's haram, but for commodity, it's halal. So Abdul Hamid say that this is not consistent. This is not consistent, despite the fact that sometimes the bank sell you the house in a much higher price than conventional bank. I'm referring to Islamic bank here. That's why you have every banks in Malaysia now has its own Islamic bank, including the Chinese bank, such as Hong Leong Islamic Bank. Right? Because it's a profitable business. And so long our advisors in the Sharia committee deriving their salaries from these institutions, there's no way they will saying something against this system. This is the hard truth. I think even Daud Bakar mentioned this. Therefore, the solution is, because you know recently we have this issue of scammers that have Islamic advisor in their committee, in the Sharia committee. Ponzi scheme, but it has halal stamp because it has Islamic advisor in the Sharia committee. So there is a discussion. How do we solve this? Even scammer can be, you know, halal now because they have the Islamic stamp, the halal stamp. There is a proposal that now establish this Sharia advisory committee, which are independent from the government as well as from the private, but regulated by the government. I think to some extent we do have rules for that, especially under Security Commission, but we just need to refine how this will be, how these advisors will have to have at least certificate. And this is regulated by the government to avoid this, because for now, it seems that they are quite independent and private in a way, right?
It's not just like it's a architecture engineer. There's supposed to be professional
Yeah.
certificate. There's a
Mm.
board
Yeah.
that acknowledge they are engineer or architect.
Yeah.
Why is it Sharia embedded? No. No,
Yeah. Mm. That one we need to question our MPs lah. They are the one. They are the lawmakers. They make laws. Okay. So long that you know, same goes to any institutions. Whenever you got the salary from the institution, the English idiom said, the dog will not bite the hand who feeds it. Right? So same goes to any institution, including the clergy. Sorry, that's a Christian word. Include the ulama institution. Okay, with that, I would like to end by a conclusion that although we know Abdul Hamid is a thinker, but definitely he was not an armchair philosopher or thinker. He goes to the ground. He went to the ground, poured his experience, utmost efforts in removing the dichotomy between the secular and the religious, intellectually and practically through this university especially, and through IIIT, and through other means, with the aim of desecularizing higher education and other aspects of a human life. And it is proven to be that we have lost such a noble and gracious fountain of knowledge. But hopefully with these ideas, like Roger Garaudy said, will rekindle new flames from new generations, Haris, Abe, and others. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Hilman, for your very much very concise and also very deep, very deep understanding of what is the main ideas of Prof. Abdul Hamid. This is important. I think we need to go just beyond just talking about the anecdotes, the stories, to the actual ideas, and even to go beyond that, to criticize in or we can say to tambah baik, to make it better for the futures, because we know that Prof. Abdul Hamid also talk about his time, but his time when he's in the 70s, 80s, up to 2000s. But we know that the world keep changing. We live in the post-normal times where the rate of change is becoming higher and higher, and to prepare for that, we need to prepare the Muslim ummah, the youth of the Muslim, to prepare for that. That's why we need to learn from the tradition, to learn from the previous generation, but also to make it better for the next generation. I think there is a question or additional. Okay.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Basically, throughout this session, what I can get is we know that Professor Abdulhamid Abusulayman, actually he has Dato, right? Professor Emeritus Dato, I think, Abdulhamid Abusulayman. We can classify him as a what we call not only a thinkers, but what we call all-rounded thinkers, I think, because he did propagate the intellectual reform, societal reform, cultural reform, as well as economic reform. So that's why I think he's one of the prominent leaders that it's hard to find this figure like in today's world, I think. But like Hilman said, maybe after this we can produce next generation which have this kind of what we call spirit, and also thought like Professor Abdulhamid Abusulayman, and adding some point based on the model of PCR, parent-child relation. Basically, I'm not the what we call the right person to discuss on this book, because I'm not one of the translator. But this is based on my experience going through and crafting the module of this book. So most probably in this book they discuss more on how to be a good parents, and also to instill the what we call the good character for the kids and the development of children itself. So it's quite comprehensive, but in this case, in this book, they most likely they refer to US. But how we can take this kind of what we call the basic principle, so that we can bring and craft into our what we call local in Malaysia. So but the idea is not that what we call different with Abdullah Nasir Ulwan, the one who when we go for the parenthood. So this is the adab that we should have, basically based on Abdullah Nasir Ulwan. So it also instilled in this book. They have some of the element that touch also in PCR. So I think most likely for the overall it is a very good book to read and also to practice, so that give us some ideas, and also for especially for the young parents, and also for the sorry? Young parents, new parents, and for those who want to get married soon. So this is the great book that you can be so called like a guideline for your life, inshallah. So that's all. Thank you.
Just a comment. I think that because there is question from Facebook before I ask the question, because I think that one of the biggest contribution of Prof. Hamid Samad is IUM. And one thing that because interesting you said about Pakistan has IIU, Bangladesh also has, even Indonesia also trying to have one. I just search in the Google. There is the chairman is Prof. Yusuf Kalla. Yeah, at least what I read. But important, interesting that when IIUM is being created, I think the idea is to have the Muslim ummah, which is each of the countries, Islamic countries, under OIC as IIU. But of course, we know that that's not happening, and the logistic and the administration cost is very high. So basically, each IIU is each country government is the one that manages it. And I think this is a reflection of how the Muslim ummah reality of the Muslim even until today, that we cannot go beyond the idea the international level. It's always in the state level, the governmental level. If we go to the international level, it cannot. It's not working. It's not working. It's just there is idea, but it's not working. It's always in the internal, in the local, in the national level. This is, I think, is important. Why is it so hard to create a university that is truly global? Because we know for fact now currently we have Nottingham from UK. We have in Qatar, in Abu Dhabi, there is I'm not sure Harvard, or there is a Western university is in the Qatar, in Doha, in Abu Dhabi, even in Riyadh have their own, we can say, branch. Why is it? Why the West can do it, and clearly the West do it because they know that there is a demand of their own education system, and they know they need even the Muslim countries themselves wanted the the prestige university in your country. Malaysia have Nottingham and in Harriet Ward at Putrajaya. What is it? Is there any other? Is there any other Western universities that is Malaysia you Reading or Swinburne? Yes, yes. And this is the example of it is possible. There is other country that university that through trying to be global, and I use there should be Islamic university or university from Islamic countries that aspire to be that. Question from Facebook. I think it is related to university. Could we from Nur Hazira? Could we from yes. Could we achieve the decolonization of knowledge when our universities mostly are set after QS as the benchmark of a success? Can IIM alone lead the substantial change when national policies in our higher education are not in line now? You think do you have any comment on that question?
Yeah, it's a challenge that we're currently facing. Of course, well, to be fair, IUM as early as last year has announced that it's not going to raise in this ranking anymore. So it's a good step, provided we do not neglect our quality. Sometimes we just want to dismiss the race because we're incompetent. Hopefully, we could be competent in our own selves and according to the noble philosophy and vision and mission of IUM. Why does the ranking system is problematic? Number one is concerning with the methodology. We know that each ranking system is different, and the things that they measure is not comprehensive and holistic. For example, the publication of journals in ISI or Scopus, right? And you know, whenever say you require that, say for example, the publication is X amount per year. And we all know that to achieve that, lecturers will do anything to publish in ISI and Scopus, including co-authoring with the student, while in fact the student do the most of the job, and a few other things. So I think this is probably very much familiar, especially with the questioner who is now in higher education, lecturer, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And then the methodology and also the and we know that this ranking system is based on sponsorship. Means if you sponsor, you'll get something, right? By default. So you have to pay for this ranking system. They're not going to do it. So they are making money out of this. So it's a good thing that we pull out from this race, but we have to be competent in our own selves. Now we are not succumb to their own benchmark and methodology. We now have to focus on our own, but make sure we focus on our own right methodology and produce something that is tangible, especially in terms of our graduates and our curriculum. One of the hallmarks of a good curriculum is that it will persist throughout the time. So I think, for example, in IUM, in certain kuliah, certain department, they mandate that the reference book must be 5 years and below. Must not be more than 5 years. So, but you know, in prestigious universities, in Harvard, in Cambridge, All right, they still use, for example, John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism, which is more than 200, probably 300 years already. And in the European universities in the past, they use Ibn Sina's Al-Qanun fi Tibb, the canon for medicine, for hundreds of years as their textbooks in medicine. So this is a hallmark of a good curriculum. We have to produce good curriculum or teaching materials. We have here, and inshallah, hopefully it is a good quality books. I have faith in it, inshallah. Professor Aslam is leading this. Hopefully the quality control is managed.
Some comment.
Okay. So, and last but not least is, forgot already, I was about to mention about this ranking system. Yeah, so now that we don't follow it anymore, we have to be, we have to achieve a certain standard at least that is based on the right worldview and methodology. Okay.
Prof. Aslam commenting that while they may at least 3 or 4 international universities, I
Okay.
don't think any of the others actually are reflective of the IOK, Islamisation of
Okay.
Knowledge Agenda, in a serious way. Chittagong could be direct trying. Only IUM, due to direct party involvement in curriculum development and human resources development, is quite unique.
Yeah.
I think this is important because even though there is the name Islamic University, it doesn't necessarily have the same methodology, the same method, the same madhab, if you can say. Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I want to say worldview, but it's not really true because Islamic worldview should be encompassing all. We cannot say that other Islamic university is not there. Obviously, if IIU, I think if we go deeper, we can say that it's the alternative maybe towards, let's say, Al Azhar, Diobandi. Why is there from Morocco, from apa? Karawiyun. I'm not from Pondok or Pesantren. I'm not sure, but I don't know because sometimes the question is not just comparing Islamic university to the Western university, but the Islamic education system or method or practice to the others. That also good, but what IIU YM trying to do is to make it I'm not sure what is the right word. Is it compatible or can challenge Western style of thinking? I think that's the maybe what the challenges of IUM and also the contribution of Prof. Hamid Seman in addressing that. I think obviously it is an ongoing project. I think before I close, I want to give any other people in the room to comment. Nasrul? Off record. Okay. Never mind. I think is there any
Yeah, just to add a bit on Prof. Aslam's comment, it is noteworthy to mention that some of the scholars in the universities in the IIU of Bangladesh, even in Nigeria, have attempted, right, as like IUM, but as Prof. Aslam has mentioned, probably without the direct involvement of IIIT scholars and the crux and pillars of this endeavor. They still depend on IIIT Department of Publication and Translation, especially in terms of vetting the quality. But the issue is we are accepting mediocrity. We allow the quality to be compromised for the sake of quantity, so that we can have textbooks. Probably the best way to deal with this is to give some sort of a training for our authors that produce teaching materials, so then they can comply with certain standard of a scholarship writing, a scholarly writing, with good references, and to be honest, I don't mind if we are using technologies and AI to help in the production of new works, but we have to vet and check the arguments and the thesis of this, because sometimes, well, most of the times, if you converse with, say, for example, Chat GPT or Gemini, they will produce answers that seem to be convincing due to the language models that they are using, but it's wrong in substance and facts. And so if you want to use that just to guide you, that can be done now using this modern technology. But what more important is to have that scholarly skills and research skills to be able to produce good books. And this is where IIIT can play a role, and also probably even IUM and whoever experts that we have, we can play a role, do some exchange stuff in between universities besides exchange students. And also they could benefit also from our productions, our textbooks, our teaching materials, and from then they can build up. Just to quote Ibn Rushd, and a civilization cannot emerge in a vacuum. It is an accumulation of tradition and intellectual endeavors of different cultures and nations. So for Islamic universities, Chittagong, or other universities, Islamabad, would like to prosper. Khurshid Ahmad is the Ribhah. Yeah, that's a different. But the same. Yes, the vice chancellor or the rector, I think. Yeah, but they have to collaborate. You know, they cannot stand on their own and produce something. Even the Islamic tradition, the Islamic civilization, we collaborate. And Abdul Hamid in his thesis, PhD thesis, talking about foreign policy of sovereign nation states, he said that the way forward is for Muslim countries to forge policies to cooperate for mutual assistance and interest. And he said, if we do not ally ourselves in this international setup, we will be disenfranchised and at a disadvantage status, and which will condone ourselves and which will make ourselves vulnerable to attack or domination. The question is to choose the right ally, right? An ally does not necessarily means you cannot criticize. We are in good terms with China, but I think Prime Minister criticized what's happening in what being called as East Turkestan or Xinjiang. The Prime Minister is friendly with Germany and even United States, but on principles, issues, morality, we have to criticize. So coming back to this higher education, especially the Islamic universities in other countries, there has to be policies to collaborate, sign MOU, and then and from then we can lend assistance, and we could also learn from them using this opportunity to excel together.
Thank you very much, Brother Hilman, for your pengisian and also your uh, uh, your thoughts on what is the contribution of Prophet Muhammad. I think we all know, we all pray to his so that what he's done can is being rewarded by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and we also all aspire to be like him to in the future to really strive towards contributing to the Muslim Ummah through of many aspects, inshallah. From that, I think I'm finished this ilmi session today, and make sure you all like and subscribe on Facebook, and also maybe you can also we can say can comment what is the book, or is there any figures or any intellectual that we should discuss in the future, inshallah. I think with that I close with Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and Sarawal As.
Next week, Prof.
Oh, Fadrul.